Explain like I'm 5. What's the reason we don't have electric engines for boats, ships, and airplanes? We have electric engines for cars now. What's the reason we don't have electric engines for boats, ships, and airplanes? For aircraft, energy density becomes a huge issue. Fossil fuels release a huge amount of energy per unit of fuel burned. And that weight of fuel on board decreases as the flight goes on, and a plane can easily take off with less than a fuel tank if desired. With batteries, you need a lot more weight for the same usable energy. Batteries just aren't able to store enough energy at a reasonable size, weight, or cost to power a ship across an ocean or an airplane across the country. Note that some ships do use an electric motor to actually turn the propeller. But rather than batteries, there is a combustion engine driving a generator to supply electricity for the electric motor. Many ships have electric motors for propulsion. However, the electricity has to come from somewhere, and they use massive engines to turn gigantic electrical generators. X200B. For airplanes, they just can't carry the weight of heavy electrical motors and batteries. Ships do, and have for a long time. Look at diesel submarines. They can dive and run on batteries for quite a while. But something needs to generate the electricity. So either a diesel generator or a nuclear generator are the picks for subs. We do for many vessels, large ships. They are called diesel-electric. The power is still fossil fuel to electric generator. But this allows for several smaller gensets spread on the length of the vessel before driving one or more propellers from electric motors or azimuth pods, typically used in ships where the height of the engine room is of the essence, i.e. cruise ships, as this allows for more space for passengers. For full electric, battery-driven ships, they are still in the pilot stage, though both Norway and Denmark has several short seaferry routes with battery ferries. Small boats also are electric now. In Amsterdam canals, I think it's now mandatory to only run the small tourist boats on electric motors. Ferries are starting to have battery-powered options now. I believe some of the Scandinavian ones are BEV. Some flight schools are using BEV airplanes too. The main problem in electrifying big stuff is that fossil fuels like kerosene are so energy dense. My gas tank of 50L diesel contains roughly 500 kilowatt-hours worth of energy. Let's assume we can get 40 of that in mechanical energy, and we've got 200 kilowatt-hours in usable energy. It weighs probably around 100 kilograms total. A 100 kilowatt-hours Tesla Model S battery pack weighs about 625 kilograms. So 2 that for 200 kilowatt-hours. X200B. And aircrafts get less efficient with added weight. I think you mean engines that use electricity, as opposed to engines that burn fuel to generate electricity. The reason is simple. Fuel efficiency. It works for cars because of the shorter ranges. Trains simply connect to power lines. But to carry enough juice to ship you across the ocean. On the other hand, I can't imagine the size of the batteries. Remember that the engines on an aircraft don't just power the aircraft to keep it aloft. Hydraulics, pneumatics, anti-ice systems, cabin heating, pressurization all require engine bleed air or electrical power to drive pumps. One thing that's not getting mentioned is that battery technology on an airplane can only power a propeller. So that would severely limit an airliner in both altitude and speed. If you want to fly at 35,000 feet at Mach 0.79, you need the internal combustion of a jet engine. There are electric engines for ships, trains, boats and planes now, just not battery operated. Batteries weigh a lot and about the same fully charged as fully discharged. Planes can take off heavy but cannot land easily when heavy. That is why they dump fuel before an emergency landing. Also, if weather delays a ship in the middle of the ocean, how do you recharge the battery? Because you can't recharge a boat battery in the middle of a lake fast enough to get back to shore before night. The energy density is also really bad in batteries compared to gasoline. So battery-powered boats weigh much more than gas boats. Most of the reason is weight. Both ships and planes need to be light to lower fuel costs, and for obvious safety reasons one can sink and the other just won't fly well. Electric cars are a welcome advancement for sure, but we're effectively driving miniature tanks on public roads. Energy density and source location in small vehicles and craft alters weight distribution. Whilst a car may benefit from the stability of a large battery creating a low center of gravity, a boat's hydrodynamics are altered negatively. A speedboat would sit lower in the water due to battery weight and react poorly to any changes in direction or cresting waves. We have nuclear electric aircraft carriers, submarines, and whatever the Russian Kirov class of battle cruisers is supposed to be. For aircraft it's different because the weight cost of fuel is way more energy dense than any modern battery will ever do. You would need nuclear-powered aircraft, which is just a bad idea. This raises a good anyone developing an electric sailboat? Most cruising sailboats have relatively small diesel engines, but they rarely need to run them that much. You also have a heavy keel that could be used for battery storage if you can keep it reliably sealed, which might be a big issue. You could even have a regenerative system to put a generating wheel into the water when under good sail and willing to trade some speed for drag power generation to the batteries. Some ships actually utilize electric motor to turn their propellers. But the electricity comes from a diesel generator, basically a huge diesel engine hooked up to a generator instead of batteries. So-called diesel electric engines. Batteries are heavy and doesn't store as much energy compared to lighter fossil fuel, meaning it's less energy dense. Think of it as eating veggies and meat. You need to eat more veggies for the same energy as eating meat. We do. Well, many are in development. In addition to the energy density, or really energy per weight, there is the issue that these vehicles do not have an regen possibility. Yes. Technically they do not have the range appreciably. This has a pretty large impact on range of a EV relative to the energy capacity of the battery. This is also why long-haul trucks have different challenges. They have electric boats. I rode on an electric pontoon boat and it was wonderful. So quiet and peaceful. But as others have said, obviously you aren't getting the range as a gas-powered boat. For some, we do. A fuel-driven engine runs and then powers an electric motor. This is done in scenarios where you need maximum torque regardless of RPMs. Like with trains. A piston engine cannot create enough force on its own to move a loaded train when the engine is idle and the train stopped. But an electric engine can. Those diesel trains you see are actually diesel power generators connected to an electric motor. Regarding airplanes, as the batteries are used, they do not still have to haul around the full weight of the battery. For the full try, jet fuel makes up a big chunk of an aircraft's weight, but as it burns, the weight disappears as well. Put that on top of the massive current energy density advantage jet fuel has over batteries and you have two pretty good reasons to stick with jet fuel. We do. It's just electric airplanes are rather range limited. No intercontinental flights anytime soon. But they are very cost effective for hobby aviation, pilot training and such. Ships have a slightly different issue. You need very large batteries. It pays off for shorter trips, especially if you include the improved air quality as value.